It's time to make it, just give it a try. 'Cause you can make it like the old fat guy.
Thank you for coming to watch another episode of You Can Make It with the old fat guy, David Farrell. That's me. I'm going to be making something just a little different today that is so easy but so delicious. It's called Char pork. It's a Chinese barbecued pork, and it is absolutely one of my favorite things to make, either in a smoker, on a barbecue, or in the oven. You just want to start off by getting about a kilo or a kilo and a half, which is 2 to 3 pounds of pork butt or pork shoulder. They're actually the same thing, so don't worry which one you get. You can just buy a boneless roast or a boned roast, and you're going to cut it into strips, about 1 to 1.5 inches around. Don't worry about the exact sizes. If you can only get a short little roast and have to cut short chunks, that's just fine too. So once you've got your pork cut up, we're going to make a marinade to go on the char siu pork. We'll just start with a medium-sized bowl. And in the bowl, we'll put 90 milliliters or just over 1/3 cup of soy sauce. We will add 25 milliliters or 2 tablespoons of hoisin sauce, which you can find in the Asian section of your supermarket. To that, we're going to add 2 milliliters of Chinese 5-spice, which is a spice you can also find in the Asian section of your market, and 4 milliliters of sriracha sauce, which is a hot Asian chili sauce. And we'll put them in. And the last thing we're going to add is going to be 175 milliliters or 3/4 cup of brown sugar. You'll note there's actually almost as much brown sugar as liquid. You're going to be making almost a slurry, not a real solution. So we'll just put all that in a bowl together, and we'll just mix it up until it forms a slurry. The sugar won't dissolve totally because there is so much of it. You're just trying to get it to mix into a nice sort of slurpy type consistency. That's all you need to do is mix it up. Once you've got it mixed up, you're going to bring your pork back and you're just going to pour the slurry over the top of the pork. Once you've got it poured over the pork, you want to rotate the pork around in the marinade. Get all the sides coated. Something else you can do to make the pork look like authentic Chinese pork is add red food coloring. You will make no difference to the taste whatever, but if you add 4 milliliters of red food coloring over the top of the sauce and mix it in, it will be more like the Chinese barbecue pork you find in restaurants because they use spices that turn the pork really red. So I'll just turn the red food coloring in with the pork. Now this pork has to be covered with plastic wrap and it has to go in the fridge overnight for 12 to 24 hours. So I'll just put some wrap over it and we'll throw it into the fridge. For convenience today, I have already marinated some pork overnight in the fridge and we'll just take that pork out to the barbecue. Here's the pork that I marinated overnight. Now I've got my barbecue ready by lighting just 2 of the burners. This barbecue has 3 burners. I've lit the front burner and the back burner and set them on very low to keep the temperature on the front dial between 350 and 400 degrees. If you have a barbecue that has 2 burners, light one and turn the other one off and adjust it until the temperature is 350 to 400 degrees. Then put the pork on the barbecue where there is no flame. It's called indirect cooking. you go. I'm just going to grab a rag. Now, these will cook for 20 minutes on one side, get turned, and cook for 20 minutes on the other side. Another way you can cook this pork is in an oven at 350 degrees for 40 minutes, or my favorite way is in my smoker. I've got my smoker set up at 230 degrees Fahrenheit, and I've been smoking the pork for 2 hours, and it's all cooked, so we can try some right now. So there's the pork that's been smoking. It's quite different when it's cooked in the smoker over the barbecue. It gets a different texture. But we'll just take the pork off. And let's go inside and give it a try. I've brought the pork in from the smoker, and I have one piece here that I also did on a gas grill, because they're going to have quite a difference in texture when you cut into them and taste them. They'll both taste great though. Now, char siu pork can be served just a piece like this for a meal, or you can slice it into slices and serve it as an appetizer, because it gets that pretty red ring from the smoke and from the sauce. And you'll have a look and you'll see that the red ring will not look the same. There will not be there in the one that was done in the gas barbecue, and it wouldn't happen if you did it in an oven. So let's try the two of them and see if we can taste the difference. First, we'll try the one from the gas grill. It has a wonderful licorice flavor, the sweet of the brown sugar. It tastes exotic like you would expect Chinese pork to taste. It's very good. But now let's try one of the smoked ones. That is so much moisture. It's got just those nice undertones of smoke, and the sweet caramelizes in a different way that gives a slightly different flavor. But I would serve both of these with pride to any guest, anytime, and the best part is, you can make it.
In this recipe, David prepared char siu pork with a marinade. The ingredients are 1.5 kilograms of pork butt or pork shoulder cut into strips and marinated overnight, and for the marinade, 90 milliliters of soy sauce, 25 milliliters of hoisin sauce, 2 milliliters of Chinese 5-spice, 4 milliliters of sriracha sauce, 175 milliliters of brown sugar, and 4 milliliters of red food coloring. For the complete recipe, visit David's blog at oldfatguy.ca. And remember, you can make it. It's time to make it. Just give it a try. 'Cause you can make it like the old fat guy.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of You Can Make It. Today we're going to make what is a very special dish to me. It's called hamburger soup. And the reason it's special is it's an old classic recipe that goes back to the 1930s. In those days, meat was incredibly expensive, so they found making this kind of soup with barley in it and potatoes and carrots, it still felt meaty and tasted meaty on your tongue, but 1 pound could feed 8 people. So not so much beef. But why would we keep making a recipe that was there to save money? Well, first off, I still like to save money, but the main reason is it tasted so good, families got addicted to it, and they've kept making hamburger soup right to this day. It's easy to make, it's healthy, it's got a lot of fiber and not much fat. So I'm going to dive right into making hamburger soup. We're going to start off by chopping up some onion. I've got about a half of a large onion, and what I'm looking for is to get about 1 cup of chopped onion. 250 milliliters of chopped onion. You'll note that I don't just slice it. I make some cuts this way. It just makes it easier if you start your dicing before you take it apart. Let's cut that little bit of root out. And if you do those cuts, then chopping your onion becomes very simple. Now remembering we need a cup, let's just do a quick measure. Cup or 500 milliliters, or excuse me, cup or 250 milliliters of chopped onion. We're a little short, so we're going to have to do that end piece. And to do this, just cut around. And there we go. We have about a cup of chopped onion, which we'll just set aside for the moment. Now, we need about a cup of chopped celery, which we also want to dice into about a 1/4 inch dice. So we'll just cut this in half, makes it easier to do. Cut it into sticks, and then just cut it at about a 1/4 inch. Now you'll note I take the knife and I keep my fingers up and down so my fingers are not going under the blade, and try not to touch a hot iron while you're doing it. That's about 3/4 of a cup. I just know by eye, but I suggest you measure it. That's about a cup of chopped celery. We'll just set it aside with my onions. Over here. Now that we've got the onions and the celery chopped, we're just going to take 1 pound or 500 grams of lean ground beef. You can use regular, but you'd have to drain it after you cook it. So use lean, it just makes it easier. And we're just going to break the hamburger into 2 teaspoons of oil I've had heating up. Now you'll note I'm cooking in a large electric fry pan. Normally you do it in a saucepan, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm doing it in this large pan just so you can see all the steps. Once you've got the hamburger kind of broken down, just continue breaking it and moving it around while you're cooking it until it's nicely colored. So we'll just let it start to brown up a bit, and we'll carry on with chopping our mixed ingredients. So we need about 1.5 cups of chopped carrot. Now I like to chop my carrot by cutting it a bit on the bias first. It gives you easier flat pieces to cube. There we go. And just take 2 or 3 of them at a time. Cut them in half and then dice them. Yeah, one got away. So we'll just keep doing that until we get about 1.5 cups of chopped carrots. If you're going to be doing a lot of chopping, practice slower. Don't try and keep up the speed I'm doing it. Just take it a bit slower until you get used to it. Of course, I washed all of these vegetables very well before I did it. Don't peel them though, because a lot of the healthy vitamins are in the surface of a vegetable. So wash them well, but don't peel it off. You can hear the beef sizzling, so you occasionally want to give it a stir around so you can make it crumbly. Just keep breaking it down. So I've got about 1.5 cups of carrots. And then you want to do 2 medium potatoes. To do your potatoes, just cut them in planks. Again, you're looking about a little bit over 1/4 inch dice. Now you'll note I don't peel my potatoes. So much of the vitamins and healthy parts of a potato are in the skin. If you throw the skin away, you're throwing away healthy food. Just don't do it. Leave those skins on your potatoes in your soup. Now, I'm running a little out of room here, so I'm just going to put those potatoes with the carrots to give me room to cut the second potato. So there's our 2 potatoes cut up, and I'll just put that in with the rest of them so it's easier to add later. And we'll start working in our fry pan again. You notice the beef is starting to look less pink and is colored through and is getting some brown spots on it. We're just going to keep cooking this until the beef is totally grayed out, cooked, and there's absolutely no pink spots left on it. You'll note that there's not a lot of fat in the beef because I bought lean ground beef. If you bought regular ground beef, you'd have to drain this first. I won't need to. I'll just need to keep going and getting this nice and brown. It is important you break it up fine, but it will break up when it's cooking too. You'll see that the pink's gone out of the beef now, so we can start putting the rest of our ingredients in. We're going to start with the onion and the celery because they're going to cook with the beef before the rest of the ingredients go in. These will need to cook for just a couple of minutes until they start to get a little translucent, start to look a little clear. All of this is being done over medium-high heat. I'm just going to keep breaking that beef into smaller pieces too while I'm cooking the onions and the celery. You'll see that they're just starting to get some clear spots on the sides of the onion, and the celery's getting a little soft, which is just what you're looking for. When you get that look of that, the onions are just starting to flatten out on the flare, you're ready to add the rest of the ingredients. So, what are the rest of the ingredients? Well, we'll start off with the potatoes and the carrots we cut up. Then we're going to put in 791 milliliters or 28 ounces of canned diced tomatoes, including the liquid that came with the tomatoes. I have 1 can of condensed consommé, not diluted, right out of the can in this bowl. It gets added. Then we're going to add 4 cups or 1 liter of water. I have in this 1/3 of a cup or 75 milliliters of pot barley. You want to make sure it's pot barley. There's something else called pearl barley that they take the crust off of, but it's not as healthy, doesn't taste as good. Make sure you get pot barley. It's what's called for in the recipe. I'm going to add 5 milliliters or 1 teaspoon of commercial beef base. This is the stuff you buy to just make up a quick stock or a quick cup of soup. So I'm going to add that to it. I'm going to put in about 1/4 teaspoon of fresh ground pepper. I'm going to put in exactly 15 milliliters or 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. I'm lying, it just has to be close to 15 milliliters. And by the way, it's not Worcestershire sauce, it's correctly pronounced Worcester sauce, but it's spelled like Worcestershire. And I'm going to put in 5½ ounces of tomato paste. That's 1 small can of tomato paste. And all that gets mixed together in the bowl. Okay, and I'm just going to check my list of ingredients because there's so many I might have forgot something. Yes, I did. I need to put in 2 milliliters of paprika. So 2 teaspoons or 10 milliliters of paprika. That's 1, that's 2, and that was smart. Just stir it up. Now, we want to bring this to a boil, and then we're going to let it simmer for 1.5 hours. The soup has been simmering for 1.5 hours, which lets the barley get fully cooked and cooks all the vegetables until they're really tender. Now comes the best part of making anything, giving it a taste. We're going to do that right away. You'll note it gets a nice, rich, tomatoey red color. It's almost as thick as a stew because remember, it was designed to be a meal, not just a soup. And it's really, really looks hearty. And it's inexpensive because there's not much beef in it. But let's give it a try. Oh, I love the fact that it's got tomato backing. The barley together with the beef fools your tongue into thinking there's just tons of beef in here. So you feel like you're eating something really rich and hearty. The potatoes and the carrots make it almost like a stew, so you feel like you're having a meal. You really should try this. That is hamburger soup, and you can make it.
In this recipe, David used the following ingredients: 500 grams of lean ground beef, 250 milliliters each of onion and celery, 375 milliliters of diced carrots, a 284 milliliter can of condensed consommé, a 791 milliliter can of diced tomatoes, a 156 milliliter can of tomato paste, 1 large or 2 small potatoes, 75 milliliters of pot barley, 2 milliliters of Tabasco sauce, 15 milliliters Worcester sauce, 5 milliliters each of salt and pepper, 10 milliliters of paprika, and 1 liter of water. For the complete recipe, visit David's blog at oldfatguy.ca. And remember, you can make it.